Hey, it's Ken at Capital Advantage Tutoring. It's my job to get you past the Series 65 and Series 66 exam. Okay. So a lot of it comes down to some of the tests is going to have stuff about suitability and the different types of clients, whether it's a trust or an individual account or a joint account or an LLC or a partnership. All that stuff we're going to cover in here. But before you do that, please like, subscribe, and share this shit if they're not going to be offended. And if they are, doubly share it. Let's go. So look, as an advisor, you have to kind of gauge what they're doing. So when a client walks in, you got to find out as much about them as you can, their occupation, right? Why do you want to know the occupation? But because do they have a steady job or the entrepreneur like an idiot like me who has up and down stuff? So, and you got to look at, do they have money coming in? How's the money coming in? So let's say I bring in 60 grand a month, but my bills are 18. I'm fine, right? So that's great. 18 grand a month, 60 grand a month. I have more than enough room so you don't have to worry about liquidity. You can actually do longer term investments. But what if my bills are 5 grand a month and I'm bringing in 7, right? I have enough, but if a bad month could hurt me. So you have to kind of look at the portfolio and leave a certain portion of it liquid so they can access it if they need it. So the liquidity needs are coming down from their cash flow or their balance sheet. And that's what we look at their financial profile, which you're looking at, they're bringing in. We don't have to break down their profile, but we have to understand you have to look at their money coming in versus out. So you're going to kind of create a balance sheet for them, a personal balance sheet, all their assets, all the liabilities, the cash flow, all that stuff to determine an overall character or just a kind of just feel for what they do. You have to know your customer. Okay. So you have to know everything about them. Do they have dependents? What's their attitude toward money? Like if they get a bunch of money in, are they going to blow it on one thing or are they going to invest it? All that attitude toward money, all that stuff. What's their experience with stuff? Can you explain stuff to them? Like, can you do cover calls on them? Do they know what options are? If they don't, you can't, or you have to explain it to them. A lot of stuff like that. When you're trying to figure out the stuff for your client, right? So you have to kind of look at like their financial stuff and their non-financial stuff, and that could be testable. Their expenditures, what they spend, their debt, what their tax status is, where they get money from, the family balance sheet. Remember, balance sheet, that the balance sheet is the assets and the liabilities, not income or anything like that. And the kind of debt they have, credit cards, stuff like that. Any kind of long term, like a mortgage, auto loan, stuff like that, insurance, 401ks, all that stuff. That's all considered financial stuff that you have to look at. The other part of it is non-financial. The stuff that's not about money. It's always about the money. I want to look at the non-money stuff. You know, we say it's not about the money, but it's always about the money. Their age, their marital status, what kind of experience they have. Are they, what's their attitude? Like you have to look at stuff like, are they far right wing and then you don't give them stem cell stuff? The far left wing, you don't give them Monsanto and war stuff like that. Are they Muslim and they do Sharia law? You have to pay attention to that. Are they big on ESG? All that stuff you have to look at their attitude toward investing. One of the questions I might have gotten was about if the rep asked the IIR asked the client, if you got a lot of money, if you got an influx of money, would you spend it on a car or invest it? That's not like there's no judge. It's just what's your attitude toward money. All of that stuff. That's all non-financial stuff, like where they live. What basically do they have kids going to college in the future? They not have college. What are their healthcare needs? Are they healthy? Are they not? Do they have health insurance? All that stuff. It's all that stuff. You're packaging financial and non-financial factors into how you look at your client. And I've definitely seen questions. I don't know if it's so much going deep into these things, but you do need to know some of the other things, like what they call behavioral finance, which is, funny. A lot of these things could be put into the political spectrum, to anchoring. That's literally just like sticking to a position despite evidence. Overconfidence, you think you're better than you are. Regret aversion, you're afraid to lose money or have any regrets, so you invest that way so you won't make mistakes. Confirmation bias, that's basically where you're only going to listen to or read things that confirm the way you think. Herd behavior, that's literally just jumping in with everyone else, buying when it goes up and then selling when everyone leaves, stuff like that. Those are all problems that as an IAR or advisor, you have to kind of overcome that, or at least get them to not think that way. You got to make them actually make recommendations based on actual risk and reward, not perceived shit. Okay. So that's all behavioral finance and that's all this stuff. So go from there. You're also going to see pop up a lot risk tolerance. How much risk can they take, right? So you know that I do a thing called your age and bonds, right? You're 20%, 20% bonds, 50 years old, 50. Okay, so you also kind of want to look at like their risk tolerance. It's a word you're going to see popped around a lot. It's how much risk they can handle taking. So, like, if someone's, I always use a rule, kind of a benchmark. Remember, all these little number rules are benchmarks. I always do their age and bonds, right? So if they're 20 years old, maybe 20% bonds, 50 years old, maybe 50% bonds, 80% bonds, 90% bonds. It's not a hard rule, but it's a guideline, okay? And then you adjust it. If they're aggressive, you go less bonds. If they're more conservative, maybe you up it with bonds. That's what you're doing. You're figuring out their risk tolerance. But you have to understand that if they're 20, even if they're very conservative, there's got to be equity, because as much as they don't see it, you have to address inflation. And really, equity is the best inflation fighting tool there is. And then we have gold, which is another one. But equity is still the better one. That's the most common. It's liquid and all that. And it's the best one. So if they're younger, you got to give them some equity, more equity than you. Even if they want no equity, you have to give some. Okay. So keep in mind, risk tolerance is a thing. Aggressive means they want to be very aggressive. They're not going to go down to the moderate aggressiveness. Just know aggressive means they're willing to take risk. They're comfortable with risk. Moderate means they'll take some risk. Conservative means they probably won't take very much risk at all. They don't want to take risk. They're willing to give up return for that risk. Or if they're not willing to, you got to explain to them that that is kind of the deal. We're going to go back and forth a little bit between financial and non-financial. So keep in mind that sometimes you got to figure out where the income. Remember, I said before, you have to keep an eye on their income and their occupation to figure out whether you have to leave some shit for liquidity. Like I said, if the money I brought in, as I said before, was closer to what my bills are, then maybe we'd need to you need to worry about that. But I'm not a big on liquidity. I'll just buy shit and not worry about it. But if you were looking, if my income was closer to my bills, then you'd have to worry about liquidity and get that stuff. So you have to look at how the income is coming in, right? So there's things called earned income. Earned income is through employment, self-employment, um, royalties, commissions, earning commissions, not paying them, salary, bonuses, wages, stuff like that. Those are all considered earned income, and that's also what you can put in an IRA. So that matters too, because if they make $100,000 a year off dividend, they can't put a dime into an IRA because it has to be earned income. They could also make money from an LLC or a partnership, which is passive income, which again is not eligible for an LLC. I mean, for an IRA. I had one of my friends runs a broker dealer as an LLC, and he makes shitload of money, but he couldn't put a dime into the IRA, which isn't a big deal. But he had a 401k, but he couldn't put a dime into it because everything was passive income. He didn't take a salary, so he started paying himself a salary so he could set up his IRA. So because it has to be earned income, but that's so passive income is coming from a limited partnership or some sort of pass through, which we'll get to later in the video. But earned income is from salary, wages, bonuses, commissions, shit like that. Shit you earn, self-employment income, stuff like that. Unearned income, there's two types. There's dividend, right? Well, there's a few. There's dividend income, like from cash dividends, stuff like that, where it's taxed as ordinary income, and once it's qualified, then it's taxed at a lower rate. You should know what that is by the time you're taking this test. But some dividends are qualified or not qualified depending on how long you've held the stock. But that's considered investment income. That's not earned. Okay. That is taxable when you get it. Stock dividends, they're not taxable when you get it. It's taxable when you sell it as hopefully a capital gain, when you sell the stock. Then there's interest income from bonds. Now, that's taxed differently, right? So we have, always remember, there's only two things that get any sort of break. So corporations are taxed on every level. Treasuries are taxed federal, but not state. And munis are taxed state, but not federal, and maybe not even state, right? So it depends if you buy it in your own state. So keep that in mind. There's only two things that don't pay tax on every level: munis, dues and revenues, and treasuries, bills, notes, bonds, tips, strips. Those, so always think entities tax themselves, right? So if you buy a treasury from the federal government, you pay federal taxes, not state. And if you buy a muni in your own state, you pay none. But if you buy a muni in general, you pay state, but not federal. That's why I say entities tax themselves. When choosing investments, you want to know about the tax part. So you want to know how stuff's going to get taxed. Okay. That's a big thing. You want to know how stuff is going to get taxed. So like munis, tax free if it's in your own state. Corporates, like I said, are taxed on every level. If you put it in an IRA, they don't pay tax till later. All these things factor in. You have to think about them all the time. It's not the driving force, but it is a major issue. So like one thing you have to remember, you don't put munis in an IRA because you don't put a tax-free thing in a tax-free thing. You can put annuities in there, but there's no advantage. You don't get an extra benefit. You absolutely can put annuities in an IRA or retirement account, but there's no real reason to. Stuff like that. Remember, mutual funds, remember this. Everything about a mutual fund is taxable. When you get a distribution, even if you reinvest, taxable. If you sell from one fund into another, if you go for, even in the same family where they don't charge a sales charge, staying in Fidelity and going from large cap to mid cap, you're selling the large cap to buy into the mid cap. So if you sell the large cap for more than you paid for it, if your proceeds are higher than your cost basis, you owe taxes. A lot of this you should know. I'm just reminding you. Remember, everything about a mutual fund is taxable. And for the most part, you should know this, but for the most part, munis are not taxable, the interest. Trading them is. So if you buy and sell a muni, you pay taxes on it. Almost anything you buy and sell, you have to pay taxes on. But if you're rich and you have a muni and you don't pay taxes on it, right? That's fair. But if you make a lot of money, you might be subject to AMT, where they will tax you on some of that income. And only remember, so it'll never be a GO or public purpose bond. But revenue bonds, okay, revenue bonds might be subject to AMT. So if someone is subject to AMT, you probably don't want to give them an AMT bond because then they have to pay taxes on it. So if someone is subject to AMT, alternative minimum tax, you would put them in GOs or public purpose, not revenues, because there's a chance it's taxable, which you don't want. Okay, so let's say you want to give me a gift. Thank you very much. Well, there's some max. Remember, you can give me as much as you want. Feel free to give me as much as you want at any time. However, in 2024, the max you can give without paying taxes is $18, right? 18 bucks, $18,000. What am I talking about? $18,000 you can give every year to me every year without me paying taxes on it, which is wonderful. It's going to change every year, so do your own fucking research if it's not 2024. Okay, now if I give more, if you give, I'm not giving that money to you. If you give me more than 18 grand, you will owe taxes on it. However, there is a lifetime exclusion. So there's a lifetime gift of 13.5 million. So you can give away up to 13.5 million and not pay taxes over your lifetime. But if you give me, say, 30 grand this year, hint, I'll tell you my address if you need it. The extra 12 you would have to pay taxes on unless you apply it toward your lifetime gift limit. Now, here's the difference. So if you give me the money, it's giftable. But if you pay my medical bill or my education bill, my college bill, tuition, if you pay the institution directly, it's not taxable. You can give as much as you want. And it doesn't count toward the gift. But if you pay me to pay it, it is. So if you're going to pay my medical bills or pay for my kids' college, please send the money right to the school. That's the best way we can do this. This way, it's a win-win for everyone. Okay, let's keep going. Let's go a little deeper on this. So let's say I buy stock. I give you stock. I'm not giving you anything. You give me stock. You give me stock that you bought. You bought it at 20. It's trading at 30, and you give it to me as a gift. Okay. I'm going to get it as a cost basis of 20. So if I sell it at 32, so again, you bought it at 20. It's now you gave it to me when it's trading at 30, and I sell it at 32 because I'm an ingrate. I'm going to pay taxes on everything from 20 up, your cost basis plus your holding period, meaning that if you bought it 3 months ago and I sold it right away, that is going to be a short-term gain. If, however, you held it for more than a year, then it's a long-term capital gain for me. But again, my cost basis is your cost basis. So mi casa, you casa. My cost basis is your cost basis, okay? Or your cost basis is mine, whatever we're going to do it. That's for gifts. However, if it is the best part about this camera gets blurry, which I mean, I get much better looking when I'm blurry. And hopefully you can lose some weight here. If you buy stock at 20 and boom, you get hit by a bus and you die and you leave it to me because you're a nice person, it's in the will, you leave that to me, I get it at the price when you died. So again, same thing. You bought it at 20, 3 months later, you're trading at 30, you get hit by a bus. Those electric ones, you can't even hear them anymore. And now you leave it to me. I'm going to get it at 30. So if I sell it at 32, I only pay tax on $2 because my cost basis, what they call a stepped up cost basis, is 30. So you buy it at 20, you die when it's at 30, I get it at 30, and then I pay taxes on the $2 if I sell it at 32. That's awesome. That's called the stepped up cost basis. Most of the time, that's what you need to know, not the math. So gift, you get the original cost basis and holding period. Death, it automatically becomes long-term. I didn't bring that up. Automatically becomes a long-term gain, even if you bought it yesterday and they get hit by the bus. and it says what they call a stepped up cost basis. But remember this is on the exam, maybe. Annuities do not have a stepped up cost basis. So if you buy an annuity, usually it's non-qualified because a qualified doesn't matter. Non-qualified annuity, if you put in 20 grand and it's 100 and then you die, your family gets the 100, but they pay tax on everything from 20 up. Just remember, annuities do not have a stepped up cost basis. So let's break it down a little bit. If you get earned income or unearned income, it's usually going to be taxed at ordinary income rates, which is take a look at your paycheck and look how much you really bring home. And that crappy number, that difference is called ordinary income tax. And there's FICA and all that shit. But for the most part, it could be up to 37%, plus state, it's almost 50% in taxes. Okay. It's like we're in fucking Sweden or something. Most things, again, are ordinary income. There's only 3 things that are not, okay, that are not taxed at ordinary income. One, a buy and a sell. When you buy and sell, it's capital gain. Now, if it's a year or less, taxed like ordinary income. If it's held for over a year, then it's taxed at a lower rate, either 0, 15, or 20%. If you're married and you're making under 97 grand a year in 2024, it's a zero cap gain. So think about that. Now, there's only 3 things, again, that are capital gains or losses: a buy and a sell, option expiration. When it expires, you have a capital gain or capital loss, and then mutual fund distribution of capital gains. Remember, so mutual funds have to kick out 90% of their income, which I talked about in the other video. So if they distribute their capital gains distribution, it's a long-term capital gain or whatever you get. Even if you bought it the day before, if they give you a long-term capital gains distribution, it's long-term for you. Or they do the quarterly dividends, which is ordinary income. So really the 3 things: a buy and a sell, option expiration, and the mutual fund distribution of capital gains. Those are the only things that are not ordinary income. Catch it up a little bit. Now, when we're still looking at the clock, we're still being able, we got the income covered. Now let's look at the assets and the personal balance sheet. Look, what's an asset? Their house or real estate, automobiles, jewelry, clothing, furniture, annuities, 401k plans, pension plans, IRAs, savings accounts, corporate bonds, stocks, mutual funds, CDs, and checking. Those are all like assets, okay? Government bonds, any kind. Look, make it easy. Any kind of real estate they own, or house, cars they own, or trucks or automobiles, planes, trains, automobiles. Any kind of personal stuff, jewelry, clothing, any kind of bonds or stocks or securities, plus retirement plans, savings accounts. Those are all considered assets, okay? Now, if you see the word tangible, it means touchable, like real estate, cars, things touchable. Investment, stocks, bonds, and retirement stuff. And then savings is like money market, CDs, stuff like that. Now, liabilities is what they owe. Okay, you got to match that up: mortgages, auto loans, credit cards, student loans, and the debit balance on a margin account. Those are all considered liabilities. And to get their net worth, you subtract their assets. You take their assets and subtract the liabilities from it. So assets minus liabilities is their net worth. Here you go. Okay. Now, liquid net worth is what they have right away. So it's not usually the stuff that's not convertible into cash, like the house and the car, don't count. Usually it's like stocks, bonds, stuff like that you can turn into cash. Then you subtract that from your liabilities, and that's your liquid net worth. Now that you have the information about your client, what do they want? That's the key. What do they want? Do they want growth? Okay. Do they want growth? Do they want income? Stuff like that. You all have to look at all that stuff. The question is growth. Remember, so as far as suitability goes, I kind of break it down a little too simply, but it does keep you centered. There's a holy trinity of suitability. Do they want growth? Then they don't want income. Do they want income? Then they don't want growth. They don't go together. Yes, there's a mutual fund that's called the growth and income fund. Just fucks up my whole thing. But in general, if they want growth, they don't want income. If they want income, they don't want growth. However, preservation of capital can work with income. Okay. So the holy trinity is growth, which is capital appreciation, stocks and mutual funds and annuity, variable annuity, stuff like that. They could want income, which is like bonds and preferreds and bond funds and CMOs and stuff like that, CDs. Or they want safety, which is capital preservation. The highest level of safety is capital preservation. Don't want to lose anything. Those are all things you have to look at. What's under safety? When you're safety, think treasuries, T-bills, T-notes, T-bonds, tips and trips. Here's the thing. I see this all the time. If I say safety, you say treasuries. If I say safety, you say treasuries. Don't fucking say Ginnie Maes. If it's just Ginnie Maes are backed by the government, but if you have a choice of a treasury or a Ginnie Mae, take the damn treasury every time. I see it all the time. People jump right on Ginnie Mae and they roll right past T-bond or T-note. Go, if it says safety, think treasuries. And then if that's not there, then you can jump to either Ginnie Mae's or high grade bonds. That's it. That's a lot of suitability stuff. I have suitability videos. I will put them here. That's going to help you a lot.
So a couple of things about suitability. And again, there's no script here. So I'm kind of just riffing and trying to figure it out. First of all, if you like what I'm doing, please subscribe. Please hit the buttons, tell people. The other part is, if you go on my description, there's actually a pretty good achievable, and it's more questions. And actually, I think they do a free, what do you call it? They do a free trial if you want to give it a shot. Try it. I mean, it can't hurt to try it. And if it can help you, that's great. And let's see what happens from there. Okay. So a couple of things about suitability that I'm going to talk about. Time horizon is a lot. And again, if this is going to be all over the place, because I'm just throwing it out there because I want to help people before my live. So time horizon is everything. So the longer the time horizon, the more risk we can take. So we want to take more risk with long. So if you're thinking 15, 20, 30 years, there's a lot of risk there and you have a lot of time. So there's a lot of purchasing power risk, which is inflation risk. So bonds over a long haul are not the greatest thing in the world. So I wouldn't go too heavy on the long stuff unless they say I want safety. If you think the question is referring to inflation and it wants to protect against inflation, you really want to put common stock in there, any kind of equity, whether it's a variable annuity, a mutual fund, anything like that. Mutual funds, ETFs, variable annuities, anything with stock, convertible bonds, convertible preferreds, anything that turns into common stock or is common stock is great for inflation. It's the best inflation fighting tool there is. Okay. If you hear them say safety of principal or protection of principal, boom, treasuries, governments, every time. Safety of principal means I don't want to take risk. So that's always going to be a treasury or something like that. But on the test, they're going to give you two things. I want safety, I want income, I want this. It's usually going to be two things they give you. Like if they say they're living on Social Security and a small pension, then they're not rich. So they're not doing munis. You have to kind of look for things like that. So if they have a lot of money, then you're thinking tax breaks. If you're thinking if it's not a lot of money, then maybe you're staying away from munis, more income. The older they are, the more bonds you want to do. Everyone goes this, 100 minus their age and whatever. I just do this. Their bonds, their age and bonds. So I'm 50, I should be 50% bonds. That's your base. Then you adjust up or down based on tolerance. If they want to take more risk, maybe do 40% equity. 40% debt and more equity and other stuff. I kind of look, when I see something, I look for debt first. I look, if they do the percentage things, I look for how much debt they have. So I try to look for that. So if I see like, oh, they're, like a 30-year-old and I see 60% debt, I throw that right out. Yeah, I'm fighting with my daughter left and right because she works for a hedge fund and they're very doom and gloom. So she's always treasuries and money markets. And I finally got her to put a little more risk in because she's 29. She's got to put some risk. She has a long time horizon, I hope. So now, again, short term, well, we'll get to that. Long term, you got to take some risk. You have inflation problems. So you really need to do equity and equity type of things. If they give you safety and then inflation, then yeah, then we can go tips. But tips don't beat inflation. They kind of just match it. So tips don't beat inflation. Common stock does. The best inflation fighting tool is common stock. Okay, again, safety of principal, bonds. The older I get, the more bonds I do, the more fixed income. Maybe munis if they have a lot of money. So I say this, and it's probably politically incorrect. Rich people buy munis, poor people buy corporates. Just think that way. Okay, Social Security, social worker, not making a lot of money, one of the artsy jobs, maybe a teacher. They're probably not have a lot of money, so you're going to go safer, and you're not worrying about munis as much. If you see a retirement account, guess what? You don't put in it. You don't put freaking munis or limited partnerships in there because you're already tax advantaged. Why would you put a tax advantaged product in a tax deferred account? It just doesn't make sense. So again, let's go back now that I'm riffing and going crazy on this. So yeah, I say riffing a lot just because it's the only way to explain how I'm just going off the handle. Now, long-term equity, short-term bonds. Like, so say you have a time horizon of less than 5 years. You're going to go bonds. You're going to go fixed income. You can't take the market risk. Yes, that's FINRA world, not real world. The other thing is under a year, no freaking equity at all. If you see a year saving for his house in a year and a half, it's money markets, commercial paper, bankers acceptance, stuff like that. It is all about the safety and not making money. Remember though, for safety, it's going to be lack of, there's not going to be a lot of money. Okay. So let's think about this. So if I want, let's go through a couple of things. So if I hear speculation, I'm going to look for growth stocks, speculative, small cap, tech stocks, stuff like that. Maybe high yield or low rated bonds, same thing. Maybe I'll invest in precious metals or commodities, maybe even futures. And then maybe like same thing, use those words with mutual funds. So if you're talking about the Series 6, use the same thing, a small cap fund, a tech fund, just use the word fund instead of it. Limited partnerships are also speculative. They're not for the weak of heart. And you have to make sure that they know that they can lose their money. That's 2. Now, what if I want growth? It's not, I don't really want speculation because speculation is rolling the dice. Growth is a little safer. Maybe on growth stocks, maybe mid to small cap stocks, some options. Maybe not the highest level, but maybe investment grade, but lower investment grade bonds. Limited partnerships based on growth. Maybe you want some growth stock mutual funds. See, speculation and growth is a little bit. So maybe if I want growth and maybe a growth and income fund or something like that. Commodity funds and variable annuities. Again, growth and speculation are sort of the same thing. Speculation is more risky. Okay. What if I want safety? I'm a wimp. Cash, money markets, CDs, treasuries, muni, basically high-end muni bonds, blue chips. Remember, blue chips are safe. Blue chip stocks are safe, so they're kind of good. They beat inflation and they're safe. Okay, so now, again, preservation of capital. If you hear principal protection, safety, government, securities, Ginnie Mae's maybe, but that's after you look at the treasuries. Growth, common stock or common stock funds. If I want balance or moderate growth, I'm thinking blue chips, aggressive growth, tech stocks, sector funds. Sector funds are like basically my dog. I'm playing catch with them. Sector funds are more like they're not diversified, so they have more risk because they have a lot more non-systemic risk because they're based on one thing. If I want income, so if they say income, mostly bonds and preferreds and stuff like that. Hear the dog coughing. Bonds and preferreds, not zero coupons. Zero coupons and ETNs and ELNs don't pay income. Zero coupons, so commercial paper doesn't really pay income. T-bills don't pay. Zero coupons, strips don't pay. ETNs, ELNs don't pay. You get the money at the end. Rich, muni bonds and muni bond funds. If I want some high income, I'm going to do like lower rated bonds, high yield bonds, stuff like that. Liquidity. Remember, the other thing is when you hear liquidity, they went in and out. So it's like blue chips are liquid. Common stock is liquid. Short-term securities. Now, when I say common stock, I mean exchange traded or high grade. So not over the counter, not pink sheets, stuff like that. You want to make sure that you're paying attention to what they want. Okay. So now, if I hear liquidity, I'm doing money market funds, anything money market, short term, highly rated, stuff like that. Okay. Inflation, common stock. Limited partnerships, real estate, annuities are not liquid. Remember that. Limited partnerships, DPPs, real estate, and annuities are not liquid. Munis are not even really that liquid. That's why they say, should you short a muni? Well, you can, but you shouldn't because you can't get out of it. So let's make sure we got this. Safety, treasuries. Growth, common stock. Income, bonds, they have to pay. Now, income bonds are no good. Income bonds are never suitable for anyone ever. That's like what they are. They're basically a company that was going into bankruptcy and it needs a little room. So they create these income bonds that they only pay the coupon when they have income. And remember, it just got out of bankruptcy, so it's probably not that strong. I'm sorry for being all over the place, but that's just the way I think. So again, long-term, probably common stock. Short-term, money markets. Income, bonds. Safety and income, treasuries. Rich in income, munis. Poor in income, corporates. Do you see there's a pattern here? They're always going to give you one or two things. You have to look at everything. Like, okay, interest rate risk. Interest rate risk is a risk that rates are going to move. So what do? We look, long-term bonds have more interest rate risk and low coupons. So if we're worried about interest rate risk, we stay the hell away from them. We do short-term things. Okay, we do AAA 1-year bonds or something like that. Or we buy variable rate demand obligations. Variable rate anything doesn't have any interest rate risk. Convertibles, I'm not saying to hold me this and you're going to shoot me. If you see an answer, questions, and convertibles a choice, it's probably the answer more than not. Okay, so I did as much as I could in suitability. I could spend hours on it. Mostly it's examples. So, couple things. No risk and low risk are not the same thing. Low risk, I'm willing to take some risk. Blue chips. No risk means I want no risk. Principal protection, I'm looking at treasuries. And if they say 50-year-old, some of you watching this understand, I am 52. I am not dead. So don't put me in freaking treasuries. I don't want treasuries. I want stock. I'm not going to die, but I have another 30 years of investing. So don't think 40, 50 years old is near death. I know my 22-year-old students, I say 50, and they break my heart because they go, oh my God, I'll put them in treasuries. I'm not going to die anytime soon. Not going to die, but whatever. Okay, so I hope that helped. I ranted for 10 or 12 minutes. Since I did this, please share this. Please hit the notification. And now I'm just going to do a little rant on each product. It won't be long. It won't be all encompassing, but it'll give you an idea of each thing. So maybe it can at least not sound dumb when you're talking to people. That's the goal. On my goal, I just know just enough does not sound like a fucking idiot. Number one, common stock. What is it? It's ownership. It's equity. Why do I buy it? I buy it for capital appreciation, income, a hedge against inflation. It's easily transferable. They have voting rights. You can vote. It has a limited liability. The risk is that what you put in. What are the risks? You got market risk and business risk. Market risk is systematic. Business risk is like non-systematic. You can diversify the way. That's like if they have poor earnings or shit like that. Boom. Preferred stock. Number two, preferred stock. It's a class of ownership. It is a type of equity, but it acts more like a bond or more like a fixed income than it does look like common stock. It has a fixed dividend. It doesn't have a maturity date. It is ahead of common in liquidation, and but it is still after all the debt stuff. It's a fixed income. Okay, so now what are the risks? You have inflation risk, which is also known as purchasing power. Interest rate risk and dividends are not guaranteed. Remember that the dividends are not guaranteed, so they're a little more risky than bonds. REITs, real estate investment trusts. Basically, it's like a little package product that owns real estate in it, and the value of it goes up and down based on the real estate properties, okay? They're buying it. They either do equity ones where they're flipping houses or renting it out, or mortgage ones where they're just providing mortgages for homes. Why do I do it? Because you're investing in real estate while still being liquid, okay? It acts like a stock. They distribute 90% of their income. It's non-correlated to the stock market. So it doesn't go with that. Interest rates affected a little bit, and you're looking for income and capital appreciation. What is the risk? The risk that if interest rates move it, it's going to go bad. It could be bad or good. Real estate it hits the shitter. That's bad. Now, the dividends are taxed as ordinary income. There's no qualified dividend. Since they distribute so much of their income and you're getting it pretty much pre-tax, the IRS is not going to give you that lower break that for qualified dividends. You don't get that. Now, there are bonds. There's corporate bonds. Bonds are issued by corporations. It's you, the investor, lending money to the corporation. What does it have? It has a fixed start date and a fixed end date. And you're going to get your money back, hopefully, and they pay you interest over the life of that. Why the hell do I buy it? I buy it for some safety. I buy it for income. I have a fixed maturity date. I'm going to get my money back. And if I do speculative, I can get a lot of income. What is the risk? I have risk of default risk. I have inflation risk, interest rate risk, call risk. So let's make sure we got this. So what are the risks? We have interest rate risk. We have default risk. We have inflation risk. We have call risk. And if it's paying over time, like every 6 months, we have reinvestment risk. Okay, let's say we have a lot of money, rich people, we're going to buy munis. It's the same kind of thing where you're lending money to a municipality, a city, or a state. The advantage is that you're buying it probably for income that is tax-free on the federal level, at least, and maybe the state and local. Remember, I'm not covering everything. I'm doing a really quick rundown of this stuff. So you're looking for income. You're looking for tax-free income. So rich people buy munis, poor people buy corporates, okay? It's usually federally tax-free. and it's pretty safe, but they're not as safe as treasuries. What is a risk? Same as corporates with one extra one. We have default or credit risk. We have interest rate risk. We have inflation risk. We have reinvestment risk. We have call risk, but add in legislative risk. What's legislative risk? Legislative risk is that if they change the tax code, all of a sudden munis don't look that good anymore. Okay, government debt. Okay, so the main three ones: bills, notes, bonds, tips, and strips. Those are the ones. Okay, T-bill. Remember, the big thing about governments, what do we know? Safety, 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 safety. There's no default risk as far as we care. So T-bills are short-term, 1 year or less. They're issued at a discount. They don't pay a coupon. T-notes and T-bonds. T-notes are 2 to 10 years. They pay over, 2 to 10 years. They pay a coupon every 6 months. You're getting income. T-bonds up to 30 years. Again, coupon every 6 months. You're getting income with safety. Tips, Treasury inflation protection securities. Those you get a coupon every 6 months, but the par value or the amount of money you're getting every 6 months will adjust based on inflation, which is CPI. Then we have strips, long-term zero coupons. Those are basically, you buy it at a deep discount, and say you buy it at 600, and then in 10, 15 years, it grows to 1,000. Okay, why am I buying these things? Okay, well, strips, not so much, but you're buying it for income. You're buying it for safety, liquidity. You have a fixed maturity date. The term bonds, you're getting regular income, and the tips fight against inflation. Strips, they have no reinvestment risk. You buy them for target-based investing. What are we worried about? Lots of inflation risk because it's so safe. The coupon's very low. We have interest rate risk. We have and lower rates exchange for safety. We're giving up the return in exchange for safety. Agencies, Ginnie Mae, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, all that stuff. You're buying it for monthly income. Okay, they're either the Ginnie Mae's are actually backed by the government. They're an agency. The GSEs, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, even Sallie Mae, those are not actually directly backed by the government, but they're implicitly backed, as we found in 2009. They did pay it. I hope I'm not going too fast. If I am, slow my shit down. Why do you buy these things? For monthly income, maybe a little higher coupon than the treasuries will give you because they're not as safe, but you're looking for monthly income. What do you have? You have inflation risk, you have interest rate risk, and you have prepayment risk. Prepayment risk is that the people who laid out the mortgages will pay off their mortgage earlier and you get your money back sooner. The other one is extension risk, that if rates go up and people don't refinance, you're stuck in this lower paying one. Okay, I sort of talked about it before. A zero coupon, it's a long-term zero coupon. Long-term, I guess it could be short-term too if it's a T-bill, but you're buying it at a discount, okay? So a zero coupon, you buy it at like 800, and at the maturity, you get 1,000. You make that $200. So it's not, there's no income there, but it's called target-based investing. You know what you're going to get at the end, hopefully. That's why you buy it. Maybe retirement, college, stuff like that. What do we have? Unless it's a treasury, you have credit risk. Much more volatile. Remember, the long-term low coupon, right? Longer term bonds move the most, and then low coupon. You can't get much lower than zero, okay? They're very volatile, okay? Now, the other thing is you have, with all zero coupons, you have to accrete it every year, which means you might be paying taxes on that accreted income, known as phantom income, and you're not getting paid till the end. Money markets, short-term securities, 1 year or less. Basically, I'd say 95% of them are issued at a discount, just like a zero coupon, but very short-term. You got T-bills, CDs, commercial paper, banker's acceptance, repos, stuff like that. Very low rates, but you're kind of parking your money. You're not looking for a return. You're getting safety, liquidity, very little interest rate risk, very little inflation risk because it's so short term. What are the risks? Low return. They basically have the money that you're getting back may move a little bit. Most of it's going to be low return. PPPs, they're limited partnerships, which pass through the income. They have a flow through, a conduit, not a conduit, a flow through of income and losses. Now it sounds crazy to say losses, but that what they really mean are like write-offs, deductions, stuff like that. So you're buying it to make money, but you're also getting deductions, which would lower your income tax. Why do you buy these? For professional management, for tax savings, and you have a limited liability. So the limited partners in this can only lose what they put in, but they want to make money. All the income passes through. Remember that. So if you and I are partners in a partnership and it makes 10 grand. You get 5 grand, I get 5 grand. Then we get like write-offs that we can use to lower what we pay taxes on. That's why we buy that. So before you invest and put somebody in there, you probably should make sure that they're they can handle the risk and they can benefit from the tax breaks and the tax write-offs. Okay. What's the problem? They're not freaking liquid. They have a lot of liquidity risk. You can't, the passive losses that you get can only be used against passive gains. So now, like in capital, when you're trading capital losses, you can use some of it against your ordinary income. Not here. If you lose money on a limited partnership, you can only use it on other passive gains, which is limited partnership and direct investment in real estate. If you make money that way, you can use it. Other than that, it sits there and waits until you have some sort of gain. Okay. You have legislative risk. They may change the laws. And the big one's liquidity. That's the big one. Variable annuities. Variable annuities in general are non-qualified plans where you put money in, it grows tax deferred. Okay, you put money in, after tax, it grows tax deferred. You don't pay any taxes on it. And at the end, you can either annuitize it where you get paid for life, or you can take out a lump sum. But it is non-qualified. So if you do put in 20 grand and it grows to 100 and you take it out, you're going to owe taxes on the 80. Even if you annuitize, which means paid for life, you're going to owe taxes on that. So it's a retirement plan. It grows tax deferred. So why do I buy variable annuities? You do it for tax deferred earnings and growth. You get a guaranteed death benefit. Okay. You get payments for life at some, whether it's small or a lot, but you get paid forever until you die. And if it's a variable annuity, as opposed to a fixed annuity, you can choose what level of risk you want to expect your payments. And you can put as much money as you want or as little as you want since it's non-qualified. What's the problem? Okay. When you get the money, it's always taxed as ordinary income. There's no capital gains rate. You're going to pay the highest rate. There are a lot of costs. The thing with annuities are they're really good for the rep, not as good for the investor. There's a lot of fees. Okay. There's a lot of fees. If you take money out, if you withdraw money before you're 59 and a half, you're going to pay a penalty. Although you can annuitize at any age. If you actually withdraw the money, you're going to pay a penalty if you do it before 59 and a half. And if you try to get out of it early before, not withdraw, but cancel it, you might have to pay surrender fees, stuff like that. So you don't really put people in annuities if they need the money right away. If somebody has a liquidity issue, annuities are not the choice. So they have open-end management companies and closed-end. Open-end is basically, it's a packaged product where they buy securities. It's open-end. I have whole videos on this. I'm just giving you the general gist of it. Why do we buy these? We buy them for diversification. You're owning a package of products without having to buy 50 shares of each thing. You buy this and you own hundreds of shares. You're buying it you're buying it for professional management. Okay. You're buying it. You're paying some rich person who lives in Greenwich to manage your portfolio. You're probably paying them too much. You're hoping they have talent. Okay. It's convenient. It's easy to get in and out. They're liquid. Okay. And you don't really have to put a lot of money in. I mean, you can put $100 in and you're fine. Where's the risk? Market risk. For equity funds is market risk. If it's a bond fund, it's interest rate risk. There's a lot of fees and expenses, ongoing, stuff like that. Open end, we're still in the open end. The open end one, because they issue new shares every day, people buying and selling shares, it changes. Unlike a closed end fund where it issues one time, okay, it issues one time, trades during the day, unlike an open end fund where you buy it at NAV plus a sales charge. End of the day, you should know this by now. So you buy a closed-end fund, they issue a set number of shares, seal the top. And if you want to buy shares of this, you have to buy it from someone else. Again, why do you buy it? Diversification, professional management, convenience, and liquidity. Sounds the same. What are the risks? Market risk for equity funds, interest rate for bond funds, and you have some fees and stuff like that. Okay, that was a super, super duper fast rundown of all the different products. I didn't do options because we have whole things on that. Remember one thing, and my suitability videos will help. Time horizon is everything, okay? Time horizon is massive, okay? Time horizon is how long you have to do something. So the shorter term, like if it's under 5 years, you stay away from equities, pretty much. Real world, no, but test world, yes. On anything under 5 years, you stay away from equities. Going forward with that, anything beyond that, you start going more toward equity. Long term, if you have a long-term time horizon, well, then equities are safer because over the long haul, they're better. Bonds, even though they're long-term things, are actually short-term securities. Remember that. Bonds are actually long-term, but they're better for shorter-term investments. You want to look at their age, all that stuff.
actually, instead of attaching it, I'm just going to stitch it right here. So after this, you're going to see me lose some weight, get a little younger. You're going to see 3 videos that will help you with the suitability part of these exams. So instead of me having you go to another place, we're going to stay right here, stay with me, and we're going to go through it. I'll be back in a few minutes. Audio might be a little different because I'm using a different mic from back then, but I am thinner. It's a different spot. It's a blast from the past. I will see you on the other side of these. And welcome back. How'd I look? I look much better. I look a lot older now. 3-4 years ago. Now, and remember, any of the numbers they give probably have changed, but it's all about the theory. Okay, couple of things. Social Security, one of the retirement things. This is going to show up. So Social Security is what happens, that little shit that you pay, 6% of your income every up to like 168 grand, you pay every year. You don't pay 168, you pay 6% of your income up to that income, and then anything after that, you don't pay. Now, it's set up this way. You can start taking it at 62, but if you do, you only get like 60% of whatever you're supposed to get forever. You can't change that. There are ways, but not on this test. You can start taking Medicare at 65. That's the free healthcare. Well, free healthcare, the universal healthcare. Full retirement is 67, depending on how old you are. For most of you, it's going to be 67 to 68. And then you'll get your full amount, 3 grand, 4 grand, whatever it is. If you can wait till you're 70 and start collecting, you'll actually get a bonus on top of that and get more. However, if you take it early, so if you start it between 62 and you take it when you're 62, you can still work, but they penalize you. For every dollar you earn, they will reduce your benefit by 50%, by 50 cents. So they're penalizing you. But if you make it to full retirement and then you start collecting and then you start working, no penalties. Remember, every year that you get closer to waiting for the full retirement, you're going to get a bigger percentage. It's not like if you start at 62 and then you get 60%, and then at 64 and 65, you're getting more. No, you're always going to get 60% of what you should have gotten at that age, because they do up it, right? As you get older, inflation, they kind of up what you're getting. It's not a lot, but like with the inflation from 2022, everyone got a big bonus in those Social Security checks, whatever they call it, cost of living, COLA, whatever it is. Now, cost of living adjustment. So again, you can start at 62. If you're hurt or disabled, you can do it earlier. But normal retirement is 62. That's not the full. That's going to get a percentage. And if you work, they penalize you. If you wait till you're 67, you get full. You can work all you want, no penalty. If you wait till 70 or so, you get a bonus on top of what you would have gotten. So they're trying to get you to wait till 70. But then if you're full time, you can work all you want, no penalty. Okay, hope that helps with Social Security a little bit. Now that you know the suitability and you dealt with this, how was it? Hope it wasn't too bad. The taxes, suitability, all the risk matrix, all that shit in there. Hopefully that'll help you a little bit, put you over the top. Now, let's see what kind of clients we bring in. First, we have an individual. That's easy. An individual account, we're going to open the account. They either have a cash account, which means they pay full for everything, or they have a margin account, which means they're going to use margin, borrow money. Remember, broker dealers can broker dealers can lend to customer under Reg T with margin. So if you have an individual account, it's either cash, you pay 100% for everything, or margin, where you pay others, where you can put down 50%. Another part of it is you can get power of attorney, right? So on the broker dealer side, power of attorney allows you to do trades. On the broker dealer side, both really, they let you do any trade that's suitable. And if it's full power of attorney, they'll let you move the money. So back up. Power of attorney, you can do any suitable trade. That's also called discretion. If it's regular one, then you can just do trades, any suitable trade. If it's full power of attorney, then you can actually pay bills and move money for the benefit of the client. That would be considered custody. We're not going into that. If it's a broker dealer, you need that permission ahead of time. If it's an IA, you can get up to 10 days of oral. I'm not going to touch that, Michael. Don't say anything. 10 days of oral before you get and then after the 10th day, you have to get it in writing or it ends. But all power of attorney ends at death. Power of attorney never goes past death, ever. On top of that, I'm just hitting that. On top of that, we also have what they call durable. So if you have power of attorney, it ends at death, or if you're incapacitated, like coma, dementia, shit like that. However, if you have durable power of attorney, it still ends at death, but will still carry forward through dementia, coma, stuff like that. You have to physically pick that. There's another one that's called Springing power of attorney. I almost had a brain thing. Springing power of attorney. Springing power of attorney means that it doesn't go into effect until an event happens, like a coma, like dementia, like Alzheimer's, incapacitation. So they have no control over your account until you get incapacitated or coma, whatever it is, hitting in the head. Whereas in Grey's Anatomy, they say gorked. Okay. So that would be, I can't believe I just admitted I watched that show. So that springing power of attorney goes into effect when you get dementia, incapacitated, stuff like that. Now that's if it's one person. Also, they have a thing called the TOD, transfer on death. So that's one person, and you have it set that when you die, it goes to the person automatically. And they keep saying, so automatically it goes there, I was gonna say no prostate, no probate, no prostate, no probate, whatever. I guess it's the same thing, court ripping you apart. If you have a TOD account and you set it up and then you have a will, this TOD supersedes the will. So what happens is, even if your will says Mary gets all my money, but Johnny's part of the TOD, Johnny gets everything. They say that's a disadvantage. I guess maybe you write the will and you forget. I don't know, but Johnny gets everything. So a TOD automatically goes to the person on the account after you die, and it avoids probate. Now, if we have a joint account, this is more than one person. There's really only 3 or 4 we have to worry about. There's one called joint with rights of survivorship. Again, I'll say joint with rights of survivorship. That means you and I have an account, or even 3 of us. If I die, you get everything. It all goes to you, no probate. Joint with rights of survivorship, we're both considered owners of the account, but if one of them dies, the other account owners get the shit. Makes sense. Then we have joint with tenants in common. Joint tenants in common, you and I have an account, we still have control of it, full of it, but when we die, my percentage goes to my estate, my heirs, my children, my family, and it goes through probate. Again, tenants in common, if I die, my percentage goes to my estate, my heirs, my children, and it goes through probate, and then you have your own money. So rights of survivorship goes across, tenants in common goes down. So the difference between the two is where the money goes after death. Now we have 2 others. Tenants in entirety is for married couples only, which is you set up an account and all the properties in there, usually you can buy it for a house, and you have to be married. Both people have to be okay with selling it, whatever it is. So if you want to sell something in that tenants in entirety, both people have to be okay with it. And also, if you get sued, say I get sued because I did something stupid, and I have a tenant in entirety account with my wife, like say my house is, they can't go after the house unless both people are named on the credit thing. So there's some sort of protection there. And you just have to recognize community property. It's very similar to tenants in entirety, but there's only certain states that do that. It's basically where you're considered one person as a family. Only married couples can do it. That's the big thing. Then we have a trust account. So a trust is just an account you set up for the benefit of someone else. Blurry. Okay, so now set up a trust, you need three people. Okay. Could all be the same person, but 3 different roles. First, you have the grantor who sets it up, and they're going to put the corpus, the stuff in the trust, whether it's money, property, whatever it is. Then they're going to grab a trustee. A trustee is a person whose job it is to prudently, under the UPIA, prudently manage the trust according to the trust documents and for the benefit of the beneficiary. So we need 3 people: the grantor, the trustee who manages it, and the beneficiary who gets it. You can have more than one beneficiary, and in reality, you can be all 3 people. You can be the grantor, the trustee, and the beneficiary. You can't be the corpus. You got to put the corpus stuff in there. So you need 4 things: the grantor, the corpus, the stuff to put in, the trustee, and the beneficiary. They always have to manage it for the beneficiaries, not their children, not their heirs, not their beneficiaries, and according to the trust documents. If you want to open an account, you will usually need a certificate of incumbency saying that the trustee is allowed to open the account, plus all the trust documents. It's going to be taxed as a corporation. Remember that. So it's taxed as a separate entity. Most of the time, if it's irrevocable, it's going to be taxed as a separate entity. If it's revocable, the grantor has to deal with that shit. Now, if you have more than one beneficiary, the UPIA, Uniform Prudent Investor Act, rules say that you must manage a trust for all the beneficiaries, not the squeaky wheel, not the oldest, not the youngest, not the poorest, all of them in general. So that's a trust. So now let's go through the different types. So we have a irrevocable. Irrevocable means that once it's set up, it cannot be changed. So it leaves the estate. So if I'm the grantor and I set up an irrevocable trust, usually Upman Ugmas are irrevocable. They're not trust, but it's the same sort of thing. You put the money in, it cannot be changed. The trustee manages it for the beneficiary. It's not part of your assets. Now, there's also a thing called a bypass trust. A bypass trust, basically it sets, see, I'm married, I am, and I set up a bypass trust. My money, when I die, my money will sort of go to my kids, but it actually set aside to pay for my wife. It's for my wife until she dies, then it goes to the children. So the bypass sort of bypasses my wife a little way. I set it up. It's as long as my wife is alive or my spouse is alive, it'll pay for her. It's for her. And then when she dies, the remainder goes to the children or whoever is the beneficiaries. Then we have revocable trust. A revocable trust is one where the grantor actually still has control of it. I can cancel, terminate it, all that. So that basically it's, if I don't have to worry about paying taxes on it now, it'll still be the trust to pay taxes. But when I die, it's part of my estate. So irrevocable, it's a separate entity. So when I die, it doesn't matter. Irrevocable, it's part of my estate. Remember, I'm not a lawyer. You don't have to be a lawyer. These are just basic things. A simple trust is a trust that can be set up, but all of the money generated has to be distributed by the end of the year. So if you put $1 million in there and it earns 800 grand, 80,000, the 80,000 has to be distributed. The million can stay. So a simple trust has to be put in there. Okay. And it has to be kicked out by the end of the year, actually once a year. A complex can go farther than that. Okay. A complex can actually let it build up. You can actually let it stay for longer. Okay. If you want to do a charity, you would do a complex trust, not a simple trust. Like if you wanted to donate to charities, it has to be a complex trust, not a simple. Simple, money has to be kicked out every year. All the income, not all the corpus, the income it generates. Complex can hold it over years and they don't have to distribute it. They can also do charitable donations. An inter vivos trust is a living trust. It's for people while they're alive. They are going to be revocable. So when I die, my assets go back into my estate. Okay. A testamentary trust. That's what they say, last will and testament. A testamentary trust is created when someone dies. It's created in the will, and it says where all the money is supposed to go. That's why when you see last will and testament, they're talking about that. A testamentary trust is created when the person dies, and all the assets go through probate. But basically, the testamentary trust tells the money where it's supposed to go. Charitable trust, you set it up for charities. The big one is your donor advised trust. I did a video on that, and I've done a couple of videos. I don't think I did it on charitable trust, but it's basically you set it up to donate to charity. So a donor advised fund is you put the money in and you get the immediate deduction now for charity, and then you can choose where the money goes to, but you cannot put it in your own charity. You can't create a Ken Fin charitable and then have it go there. It cannot be a charity that I run. Now, HSA accounts. An HSA is like when you have a high deductible plan, which means $2,000 or less, more or whatever deductible on an health insurance plan. You can put money aside pre-tax for paying your medical bills during the year. Now, here's the thing. The FSA is the same thing, but at the end of the year, you have to fucking use it. Okay. Now, an HSA, you can roll it. Okay. So the FSA you have to use by the end of the year. The HSA, you can roll it year to year to year, and you can invest it in stuff like that. Okay. Now, it grows tax-free, and you can roll it to the next year, use it then. If you don't use it by the time you're 65, you can start withdrawing it for anything you want. If you take it up before there is a penalty. I have a number, but I don't want it to change, so it'll be bad. So you will pay a penalty if you take the money out for not medical benefits. Okay. But if you use it for medical, it's tax-free. You can invest it, and it's gonna grow. You can roll it to the next year constantly. You can end up having a lot of money in there. And once you turn 65, you can take the money out for any reason you want and just pay taxes. Okay. Now, we'll talk about retirement accounts. Okay. So if you just want to hang out in the house and do nothing all day, or maybe even just get back to nature, or my favorite, and just get on a beach and never freaking see snow ever again. I just want to read about the snow. I don't want to live in it. I've been there too long. So I'm going to keep this background for a little bit because it just makes me feel good and makes me want to go somewhere and do this. So retirement accounts, right? So you're working. You want to make sure that when you get older, you have something to live on. And that's what I tell everyone. Everyone who's young is 21, 22, dump the freaking money. I mean, even if you just do a basic 10% return, which is about average, even a little less, if you start at 21, 22, dumping $5 or $6 grand into an IRA, a Roth IRA, even better, which I have videos on. Imagine, you understand, if you put $5 grand into an account when you're 21,
If you never touch it again, but you leave it invested in the market and it earns around 10% a year, that's about the average for a while. Head's crooked again. Always is. Must be my head is crooked. That will be hundreds. I mean, four, five, $600,000 by the time you're 70. I know that 70 seems a long time, but imagine dropping $6,000 into an account right now at 21, 22, and then investing it and then leaving it there. Imagine a Roth. You wouldn't pay any taxes on it either without doing another thing, not contributing, not doing it again. You're talking 5, 6, 700 grand for doing nothing. We're just being smart now. Okay. So let's get into the whole retirement thing. So qualified retirement accounts are, again, geez, it's like I am just a crooked man. Oh, let me go. There's qualified and non-qualified. So qualified retirement accounts are covered by ERISA. They have their corporate retirement plans. We're talking about 401ks, SEP IRAs, KIOs, pension plans, 403b, profit sharing, simple plans, and ESOPs. Okay, so those are all qualified plans, which means they're covered. They're corporate plans, pretty much, and they're ERISA, Employee Retirement Income Security Act, wrote rules against them, for them, not against them. And they are, again, by a corporation, and there's a lot of rules there to protect the employees. So prior to the ERISA coming out in the 70s, basically there were no rules. So all of the retirement accounts were held in-house. And then if the firm was in trouble, all of a sudden there was no money for you. You're expecting a nice little pension, and they go, well, here's your gold watch, and have fun and try to live off tuna fish and cat food for their children. So ERISA writes the rules for retirement, for these retirement qualified plans, but the IRS and the Department of Labor enforce. So they make sure that you're doing the right thing, you put enough money aside, and all that stuff. So let's get into it a little bit. Okay, so if it's ERISA qualified, that means it's sponsored by a corporation. There's certain things it can't do. It can't discriminate, which means if you give it to one employee full time, I have to look to see if the 21. It used to be 21. I think it's changing, but not testable. So you have to, if you give it to one person, you have to give it to you have to at least offer it to everyone that works for you. Okay. You don't have to do a retirement plans, but if you do a qualified plan, because as an employer, you get certain deductions for doing this. If you set up a qualified plan, you can't discriminate. So anyone who's full-time or at least works 1,000 hours a year and over 21, the age thing will come back on. I'll figure out at some point, but it'll be on the video. So it's stuck. But as of right now, there's probably not going to be heavily testable. The big thing is you cannot discriminate. Now, there's two types. There's defined contribution and defined benefit. So I like to think of a defined contribution as I know what's going in. Okay. I know how much money is going into the account. I say I'm going to contribute $5,000 or the company's going to contribute to it. And I know it's going in, but and it's going to be invested. And I don't know what it's going to be on the back end. I don't know what the growth is going to be. Like I said, you put in $5,000 when you're 21, it could be 5, 6, 7, 800 grand when you're older. We don't know, but you're defining what you're contributing. You don't know what the back end is. Okay. That's a defined contribution. In a way, 401k, SEPs, KIOs, 403bs, profit sharing, simples, ESOPs are all defined contribution. You know it's going in. A defined benefit is you know what you're getting. So my wife's grandfather, he worked for Kohler, and he worked there for 30 years. And then when he retired, they said, okay, here's your paycheck. Okay, we're going to pay you this every month until you die. So he didn't know what they were putting in for them, but he knew when he retired, he would go out. Okay, when he retired, he would get paid for life. They're defining what he's getting. Better example. My buddy is an iron worker. He's been there 12 years now. He was on the stock exchange with me, and we all had 401ks and stuff like that. But what happens, they tell him, okay, every year that you work for the ironworking union, every year that you work, when you retire, we will pay you $200 a month. So after 20 years, they'll pay you $4,000 a month for the rest of his life. He does not care what they're putting in for him now. It's not defined by him. He doesn't care. The benefit is defined. The back end, what he gets on the way out, that's what's defined. Okay. Oh, that breeze feels good. The breeze feels good. Okay. Now, I like when I do the wrong side because it's all mirrored. So that's the defined contribution. You know what's going in. You don't know what's coming out. Defined benefit. You don't know what's going in, but you do know what it's going to be when you leave. I'm going to do a lot less videos on this because I do want to put it in the podcast, and check that out.
Blue Collar Finance on a podcast. Hey, Google, play the last episode of Blue Collar Finance. We'll see what happens. Because sometimes if you have Hey Google, it'll start playing the podcast. I have a lot of Series 7 stuff. See, my phone did it. I have a lot of Series 7 stuff, and I have some SIE stuff. Look at that. It's starting to play. Okay, so a couple more things about qualified stuff. Okay, I went on the defined contribution, defined benefit. Now remember, qualified plans, the money goes in pre-tax, which means you do not pay tax on, again, crooked, right? That means you do not pay tax on now when the money goes in. So that's what pre-tax is, also known as tax deductible. Remember, pre-tax means tax deductible. Okay, again, pre-tax, tax deductible. They go together. That means you did not pay tax on the money right now. You're going to pay later. So remember, if it goes in pre-tax, it's going to grow tax deferred. So if you put in the $5,000, it's going to grow and you don't pay any taxes on it until you withdraw it. Okay. So, and then when you do pay tax, when you take it out, you'll pay tax on everything. Okay. So qualified plans, the money goes in pre-tax, you pay no tax on it. It grows tax deferred. And then when you take it out, you pay tax on everything, every penny, because it's never been taxed. But the goal is that you're retired maybe and you're at a lower tax bracket, so it works out. Okay, there's other ways around it, Roths and all that, and we have videos for that. But again, put the money in, pre-tax, it grows tax deferred, and then when you take it out, you pay 100% tax on it. Well, you pay tax on 100% of it, I should say, at your ordinary income rate. Remember something. All retirement accounts are taxed when you take the money out. It's taxed at your ordinary income rate, which is your income tax rate. Like if you guys are young and you have no kids or anything, you're probably paying 30, 25, 30, 40% of your paycheck to taxes. That's what you're going to be doing. But the goal is hopefully you're 65, your income is lower. You can get, maybe you get some tax breaks or whatever it is, and maybe you don't have to pay as much taxes, so it works out. Now, there are other rules too, which the IRS gets involved. The earliest you can take the money out is 59.5. You can take it out earlier, you're just going to pay a penalty. And you have to start taking it out by the time you're 72/73, depending what year it is, okay? I don't know that the FINRA has, in the early 22, say the first quarter of 2022, assume that it's still at the age of 72. After that, you can probably think 73 is what they call RBD, the required beginning date, or the RMD, same thing, required minimum distribution. They're kind of the same thing. The RBD is when you have to start doing it, which is April 1st of the year after you turn 72 or 73. I'm going to say 72 the rest of the video. Just know that if they upped it, it's 73. So maybe I'll dub it in 73 one day if I learn how to do that. So again, when you put money in, the earliest you can take it out without a penalty is 59.5. When you must start taking it out is when you are 72 or 73. Okay. And that's called RBD is the day you have to do it. RMD is how much you have to take out. You have to withdraw enough that they're going to come up with a number that all of it will be distributed by the time you're supposed to die. Okay, so if you have 100 grand in there and they think you're 72, going to live to 82, I'm not even going to make it that far. You'll have to take out 10 grand a year. Okay, that's what you have to do. And anything, we'll get into that. So, and they penalize you if you don't. Also, there's limits like IRAs have a 6 or 6,000 or 6,500, depending what year you are, money that you can put in. If you put too much in, they penalize you also. So let's get into that. If you over contribute to your plan, you pay 6%. Penalty every year until you take it out. Okay. If you pull out early, you pay a penalty in everything. Just think about it. If you pull out early, we're gonna have a problem, right? So pulling out early before 59.5 is a 10% penalty, or a really mad. Never mind. Okay. Now, also, if you don't take it out in time at 72, they check you 50%. Okay, that's changing in 2024, but right now, if you don't take out enough money when you're supposed to on your RMD, you are going to pay a penalty of 50%. Okay. Now remember something: the 10% penalty when you withdraw early is 10% on top of your taxes. So you're going to pay taxes. That looks like a deer back there. That looks like a dinosaur or something, right? You're going to pay a 10% penalty on top of your taxes. So if you're in the 28% tax bracket and you take the money out early, you're going to pay 38% on your money. So again, over contribute 6%. Early withdrawal, 10%. Don't take it out soon enough, 50%. Now let's go through a couple. A 401k, okay? A 401k corporate plan, usually for bigger companies, okay? And you can contribute. You can put money in, and then your employer is allowed to match. They can, and you can put a lot. I think it's like 20 something grand around. Nobody cares about the numbers. It was 18, 19, it goes up. You can contribute and your company can match. Okay. So they don't have to match. So like you can put in 10 grand, they can put in 10 grand. A lot of times they'll say, okay, you can put as much as you want in, but the company may match up to like 100% of your contributions, up to 5% of your salary, whatever it is. A lot of companies don't, but some do. I mean, a lot of finance companies will match, but they're like law firms don't match. They go, screw you. But again, a 401k, you put money in pre-tax, it grows tax deferred, but it comes out of your paycheck, right? So all these things are going to be paycheck withdrawal stuff. Okay. You're going to take the money out of you're going to get it out of your paycheck. What's interesting, since it goes pre-tax, remember, so you have your gross pay. If you put the money in, say you put in 500 a month and your salary is whatever. If you say I'm going to bump it up to 600 a month, just say you could. You can't, but say, oh yeah, you can. Say you put in 600 a month. Doing stupid math in my head. Say you put in 600 a month and you're up there from 5 to 6. Because it's pre-tax, actually your paycheck going to go down by like $70, $80. Because remember, that money is coming out before all your taxes, so you're paying less taxes. So again, you put money in a 401k, they can match or not. They don't have to. It grows tax deferred. And then when you take it out, you pay tax on everything. Each year you take it out, you're going to pay ordinary income, just like I said before. Building on that, when you put your money into the 401k, you can't just buy stocks with it. They have a list of mutual funds and ETF. I think you can do ETFs now, but it doesn't matter. You can invest in plans, okay, mutual funds. You can actually even sometimes have it where it's automated, like we're going to have a lifestyle where when you're younger, it's riskier. And when you get older, it gets more and more, less and less. Now, what's interesting, and I should have mentioned this before, part of the qualification means that the company does not hold on to your money. Remember I said before the 70s, they could hold on to your money and they were in trouble, you got screwed. Well, here, your money is going to be held with a separate custodian. That's why a lot of you, if you don't work for Fidelity or Vanguard, you'll see that your retirement account is through Fidelity or Vanguard or T. Rowe, and it's through them because they're a qualified custodian. So this way, if your company goes bankrupt, your money's still safe. If you, again, 401k, you put it in, it's going to be through whoever. You're going to get a list of mutual funds that you can buy and you can invest in them, and you don't pay sales charges. So that kind of negates that problem. They have a thing called iShares. Mutual funds have iShares that are specifically for pension plans and big companies to invest with them. And there's a lot of companies are just kind of going to them, the mutual funds. So you put the money in, it grows tax deferred, and then you take it out. You can control where it goes. Now, again, if you would pull it out early, penalty. Okay, she'll never talk to you again. But also, you can. But the other thing is, instead of withdrawing it, you can borrow against it. There's certain numbers you can borrow against, but now when you pay it back, it has to be paid back through payroll deduction. But if you need money now for certain things, you can withdraw it. Now, remember, your money doesn't grow. There's no penalties. You pay interest. There's no penalties on it. But remember, the money you take out is now not growing, so it's going to slow down your path to here. Okay, so say you're and I'm just ranting on this. I'm trying to just go off and try to give you what you need without getting into the details, because there are books you can read for this, right? Again, cricket. There are books the books, STC, Kaplan, Achievable, Notman, That's Perfect. They all cover this. I'm just giving you an overview, so when you read it, it's not just like freaking Greek. Okay. Now, if you're not a big company, maybe you do a simple. A simple is like a smaller 401k up to 100 people. If you're a really small company, you can do a SEP IRA or a KEO. Now, the thing about the SEP IRA or KEO, you can put a lot in. You can put like, I don't know, like I think it's like 60,000. It's like 20 for, I don't know the numbers because I'm not going to put numbers here because it changes. But you can put like 25% of your income up to a number. But think about this. We're a small company, me, my tutoring company. I have 3 employees, maybe more. But if I put in money for myself, if I put like 10% of my income into a plan, I have to put 10% as the owner into their plan also. 10% of theirs, not my salary, 10% of their salary. There is a cap salary. I don't think it's testable, so we're not going to waste your time with it. But there's a limit to, like, if I make $1 million and I put in 50 grand, they're not going to say it's 5% of $1 million. It's going to be 5% of a lower salary. So I don't screw people over. Again, not really testable, but you can put a lot in. Again, pre-tax deductions, all that stuff. SEP IRA and Keo, very similar. They're for self-employed. They're for small companies, very, very small companies. But whatever I put in for myself, I have to put in for my employee also. Profit sharing is when the company takes some percentage of their profits, and they are allowed to choose whatever method they want, share their profits, and contribute for the employee's retirement. There's no this is the one where employees don't put any money in. Okay, kind of like an ESOP, but profit sharing is where the company decides what percentage and what formula they're going to use to contribute. This is a qualified plan. The money goes in pre-tax, and you pay tax when you leave, when you're older. Again, the employees do not put anything in for this. Then we have an ESOP plan, but that's an employee stock ownership where they set up a trust, and basically the trust buys shares of the company and gives it to the employees. Again, so two things: profit sharing and ESOP did not cost the employees any money. They just get it. Okay. Then we have a 403B. That's for nonprofits and teachers. It's qualified. Usually they sometimes call it a tax qualified annuity, stuff like that. Now let's jump into the non-qualified. Okay, non-qualified means it's not sponsored by a corporation. Okay, so it's not covered under ERISA. Qualified is covered under ERISA. Corporation sponsors it, sets it up, all that stuff. Non-qualified is not. So, like, I'm going to start with a variable annuity. I'm not going to talk about it. I have a video here I'm going to put up right here. That's the variable annuity video. Go watch that, and you're going to be good. Jumping on, let's keep moving. Now, a deferred comp, I put it in the non-qualified side, but it can be in both. Okay, they can set it up. There's a lot of rules that they can set up and do whatever they want. Deferred comp, they can again set it up as qualifying or non-qualifying. But either way, the money gets taken out of the employee's paycheck and put in for a later date. Okay, if it's non-qualified, here's the problem. So you take the paycheck, some of your pay, you defer it to later. They can take it out later. Usually it's deferred to retirement, but I've seen somewhere, and it worked, where they do the old deferred comp. They take a portion of your bonus and hide it for 3 years, and then you get it back then. It's got golden handcuffs, right? So if you, like, when I was at one firm, if anyone got over a bonus over 100 grand, a third of it went into this plan. I don't know if it's exactly the same, but it's the idea. And you didn't get it for 3 years. So if you left, you lost it. And that's what happens with deferred comp. They can set it up where you can get it, or they set it up where if you leave early, you don't get it. If you leave before retirement, you lose that money. So there's two choices. They can have it, and if you leave early, you don't get it. Or if you leave, you get a lump sum, which means you have to pay taxes on that, which sucks. Okay, but again, you're getting a check. It's better than never getting it. So that's the thing with deferred comp and non-qualified plan. It's held at the company. So the company, if the company goes bankrupt, you lose your money. It's subject to the creditors. If you leave early, you may lose it. So the example I always talk about is I had one of my students, and trust me, he's fine. He has 3 freaking houses in Miami. This isn't Miami, but I'm going to say it is. And what happened was in the 80s, he put a deferred comp, non-qualified plan. He's putting money in the 80s. And right around 2006, he had about, I think he said $6.4 million in the account. Again, crooked shit. My ear must be lower than the other one. Who knows? He had $6.4 million in his account. It was at Lehman. Lost every penny. He actually was in court until 2021, trying to, I guess it was end of 2020. The court said, no, it's their creditors. They lost all of it. He lost everything. Yes, he's fine. He has, like I said, he has a lot of money, but he did lose $6 million because when that money is, and that reminded me, and it made me a good story for this, right? So that money is held by the company. And he even said if they had just sent it to Fidelity, it would have been fine. But it didn't. It went right. It was at Lehman. They went bankrupt. He lost all his money. Let's talk about, I can throw out a Roth versus IRA. We'll put that up here. I talk about that. I have another video. I'll put it up here. We have a 457 plan. That's for governments or nonprofits. And the good thing, and that's a non-qualified plan. They don't have to follow ERISA. You can actually take your money out early out of a 457. So let's make a high level recap. Okay. Qualified, sponsored by ERISA, you can't discriminate, all that stuff. It goes in pre-tax, it grows tax deferred. You pay taxes on everything when you take it out at ordinary income. Non-qualified, sometimes the money goes in after tax, gross tax deferred, and then you only pay tax on the growth portion. Okay. So again, that's not always the case, but that's if it's a non-deductible. So non-qualified usually means non-deductible, but kind of open your head up that they could be trying to trick you sometimes. Qualified, pre-tax, you pay tax on everything when you take it out. Non-qualified plans like the annuity, which I have the video that I showed, you put it in after tax, it grows tax deferred, and then you take it out after 59 and a half totally, and you only pay tax on the growth portion. Now, also non-qualified plans, when the money comes out, it comes out what they call LIFO, which is last in, first out. So if I put in 20 grand here and it grows to 100 and I start taking the money out, I start at the 100 and work my way back. So the first 80 I take out will be considered income, and I pay tax on that at ordinary income. And if it's in the last 20 will be a return of principal, I don't pay taxes on it. Now, before we leave IRA world, we have to talk about one thing. Let's say I have an IRA and I get hit by a bus. I'm dead, pushing up daisies, whatever it is, I'm dead, X's in my eyes. Okay. Here's what happens. Somebody's going to inherit my massive $8 IRA. So who's going to get that? Well, if it's my wife, she can roll it into an IRA and do whatever she wants. It's called a rollover. She can roll it into an IRA and then treat it as if it's her own. Boom. If it's not my wife, or let's say someone more than 10 years younger than me, but let's say they're not going to go there. If it's not my wife, it's my kid and they inherit it. It's called an inherited. It has to be called this, titled inherited IRA. It has to be an inherited IRA, and it has to be withdrawn over the next 10 years. So the rule says by the end of 10 years. The IRS says over 10 years. Big difference, because by means I can take it all out in 10 years. Over 10 years means I have to take it out a little bit every year. The only exception to this is if they're under 18, then they don't. And then once they turn 18, then they have to take it out over the next 10 years. So an inherited IRA, again, spouse, do whatever they want. Okay. Spouse, do whatever they want. They can roll it into their own IRA or roll it into an IRA or take it out if they want. Now, if they're younger, they would maybe do a Roth because it's time for that free. Because remember, if they put into a Roth, they owe taxes on it. Okay. Right then on the whole fucking thing. But if they're in their 50s or so and they roll it into a regular IRA, they don't pay taxes until they withdraw it, and then they withdraw it at their own pace. I think that is the way to think about this. So I die, my spouse gets it, does whatever she wants. Non-spouse, kids, whatever, they have to take it out over 10 years, and it's called an inherited IRA. No penalty, even if they're under 659 and a half. Good. Okay, I went through that. Ken, you fucking forgot something. What? You forgot to talk about the 404. 404 requirements are this way, and this will be on the 65 and 66, maybe not the 7. So 404 requirements say that if it's a guideline, if you're the fiduciary or the sponsor of this pension plan or retirement plans, you can be sued for bad performance unless you do these 3 things. 1, give them at least 3 different choices to invest at different diversified plans at different risk levels. 2, give them the ability to change their shit at least quarterly to make changes in their elections, and education on investing and diversification and stuff like that. If you do those, if you do those 3 things, then you don't have to worry about them suing your ass. Okay, that up. See, you gotta fill it in. Pick up your game, Ken. Also, remember, any numbers I mentioned will change every year, so do your own goddamn research on the goddamn numbers. Now it's time to talk about the little business clients. Now, they don't always put it in as they're a client, but you need to understand the different stuff. Okay, so the first part is a sole proprietorship. I always have a tough time saying it, but it is what it is. It's a sole proprietorship. A sole proprietorship is when I first started my business, I was a sole prop. That's what I call them. I'm going to call it sole prop the rest, but it's a sole proprietorship. It's a single person. I actually can have employees, but I own it myself. There's no paperwork. It doesn't cost me any money. It's super easy, but there's no protection. I'm literally just going, hey, I'm creating something and I'm going to use my regular tax return, my 1040, maybe a Schedule C, but I'm going to do an actual return. It just allows me to take deductions, but there's no protection at all. And yes, this is the one time when technically a broker-dealer or an IA can be an individual. If they register as a sole prop, as an IA or a broker-dealer registers as a sole prop, then technically the individual could be a broker-dealer IA, probably not testable, but it could be. Now, the next thing and remember, the reason you do sole prop It's fucking free and it's easy. Okay, cheap and easy. Well, like my first girlfriend. No, not really. Okay, now partnerships. There's a partnership. There's two types: a general partnership and a limited partnership. Okay, so partnership has to have at least what? How many people? Why, yes, at least two. Because if it's an individual, it can't be a partnership. Remember that, because they may say, "Oh, Johnny opened a sole prop and he wants to be able to sell it to someone later. Do you do a partnership?" No, because Johnny is fucking alone. Okay, now, so partnerships is a limited partnership. It's set it up. It passed through. What does that mean, Ken? A pass through means all the gains and the losses pass through, which means if you make 10 grand, all the partners split it, and then any of the losses they pass through. That doesn't mean they pay it. They get to write off the losses. Losses are really write-offs or deductions. So if they make 10 grand and there's 5 partners, each get 2 grand, and say it costs 1,000 to do that, to maybe the losses or write-offs are 1,000, each partner will get a deduction for 200 to go against what they pay in taxes, which is awesome. So that's what partnerships do. They pass through. Now remember, partnerships end when the partners die. Okay, so it doesn't go forever. But there's two types. If you see the word partnership, they're talking about a general partnership, and that means it's all general partners. They can all be involved in running it, but there's not limited liability. They can get nailed personally. Okay, so a general partnership is just a bunch of general partners, like maybe a law firm, where they're all liable, but they can all run the company. As opposed to a limited partnership has to have one limited partner, one general partner. I'm not going to go into the little details because that's a Series 7 thing. One limited one partner, one general partner. The limited partner drops cash. He's a silent partner. He or she is a silent partner, cannot be involved in running the company, but they can vote the guy out if he sucks. Okay. The general partner runs it, one each. Limited partner put the money in, GP runs it. Now, a couple of people make the mistake. The GP has to have at least 1% ownership. So they have to have skin in the game. They have to have some sort of skin in the game to do this. So again, limited partners just drop cash. They have limited risk. General partners they have to put some cash in, but they run it and they have personal liability. That's a partnership. Okay. Now, a family limited partnership is literally just a family. It's basically so they can run a business. Okay. It can't be just because they want to do it. They own a business or they own an apartment building and they want to keep it in the partnership. They can do that. Okay. That's how they create that. Again, just know that a family limited partnership is pretty good. Okay. They have to have a family limited partnership has to have a legitimate business purpose. So, running drugs is not the way to go. Little money laundering is not the way to go. Marty is no good. Okay. From Ozarks. And it has to have a profit motive. So the point is, it's not just, hey, we're going to run a building and not make money on it. We have to run a business and it's for money, for profit, or at least a profit motive. Okay. Corporations, there's two types. There's S Corp and C Corp. Now, remember, so all LLCs, we didn't talk about LLCs yet. Let me do that before I let me do that. Okay. So there's LLCs, S Corps, and C Corps. An LLC is very cheap and easy to set up. It costs me like $100. You can have one person or 100, have many as you want. They are all involved. It passes through. So again, LLC are members. Okay. So an LLC is either a single LLC or multiple members. Okay. Now, each one of them can be involved in running the company and they have limited liability up to what they put in, which is awesome. Okay. Blurry. Okay. So now I'm moving too much for my camera. Woo. Okay. Back here, that's my best look. Okay. So now LLCs are easy to set up, very cheap, a couple $100, and it's either single or multiple members. We're okay with that. They can be involved in running the company. It's also a pass-through. All the gains get passed through, all the losses get passed through. So anything that's a pass-through entity, which is the partnerships and the LLC and an S Corp, we haven't talked about yet, the actual corporation does not pay taxes. Remember, the actual corporation doesn't pay taxes. The individuals do. So it passes through. So if they're supposed to pass through everything, so they don't pay taxes. Good. LLC, easy. It goes forever, continuity of life. It'll last for a long time, as long as there's people and members on it, and it passes through, and there's limited liability. Let's jump to the S Corp. An S Corp, max of 100 shareholders. Remember that. It's a max of 100 shareholders. They all have to be U.S. resident individuals. If you have a foreigner or a corporation, it can be an S Corp, but it has to be taxed like a C Corp, which we'll get to. So S Corps have 100 members, 100 shareholders. A husband and wife can be one. Okay. They pass through the gains and losses like the other ones, but a max of 100 shareholders. And again, that means the S Corp does not pay taxes. Now, if they have a foreigner or a Keep those foreigners out. If they have a foreigner or a corporation, they cannot be taxed as an S corp. They now have to be taxed as a C corp. A C corp is a taxable entity, which means the actual corporation pays the taxes. Okay, so a C corp, the actual corporation pays taxes. So if you have a C corp, basically every company I've ever heard of is a C corp. They have unlimited shareholders. They have as much. So you have this unlimited shareholders. They can that's the best way to raise a lot of money. However, now they have shareholders who can vote and stuff, but they don't run the company. Then they have the members. They have the two-tier system. We have the officers and directors that run it. Now, here's the other part. Since the corporation pays taxes, they pay taxes on the income they earn, and then if they pay a dividend, you pay taxes on that income too. Fucking IRS, double taxing your ass. So you're paying taxes on money that's already been taxed. And remember, that money's been taxed when they got it the first time. So it's like 400 times taxed. So they keep taxing until they get it all. Now, so C corp earns money, they pay taxes at the corporate rate. Then they pay a dividend. If they do, then you pay taxes on that. So it's double tax. That's why people don't like them. But the thing is, they are the best way to raise a lot of money. If you're going to go public, you're going to have to do a C corp because it's the only one that works. Maybe a master limited partnership, but not this test. So again, sole prop by myself, unlimited. LLC, easy to set up, limited liability. Partnership depends. Limited partnership. Some people have limited, some people have unlimited. If you see the word partnership, it means a general partnership, means everyone has liability. S corp is 100 shareholders, limited liability. C corp, unlimited shareholders, limited liability, but they're double taxed. Hope that helps. That's a lot of the investor advisory comps. We have one more thing to do. I shouldn't have stopped. Now, let's talk about it. Cash account means you pay for everything up front. Boom. You're not leveraging. If you use a margin account, you are leveraging. Remember, because you're buying stock, you're putting down half and you're only paying for half of it. So you're leveraging your money. So you can buy twice as much stuff. That is called leveraging. That's the only way a broker dealer can lend you money. Okay. But the problem is, remember this, you have to warn them. You have to give them a disclosure knock and all that. You have to warn them that if they're as much as their gains are increased because of leverage, so are their risks. Remember that. Always remember, an agent or a registered rep or an IAR has to give some sort of disclosures and let people know there are risks. Okay. So if you let them do margin, you have to say, listen, I know that your gains are magnified, but so are your losses. Okay. That's investment advisory clients. I hope I did a good job. Hope the the little stitching didn't hurt you, but let's get on it. That should be all the videos. Now I can add on to other tests. Yo, have a good night. And don't forget to check me out every Tuesday and Thursday night on where? Yes, the Tube of You, 8:30 p.m. The original.